you, Shirley. That was awesome. I'm so excited for everybody to be here today on Mother's Day, and especially to Holly Karapetkova for being with us. Holly is the Poet Laureate Emerita of Arlington, Virginia, and she's a recipient of the 2022 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship for her work with young poets. She's the author of 3 books of poetry: Dear Empire from Gunpowder Press, which was the winner of the 2025 William Meredith Prize and the Barry Spacks Poetry Prize. Towline from Cloudbank Books, which was the winner of the Vern Rutsala Poetry Prize, and Words We Might One Day Say, winner of the Washington Writers Publishing House Prize for Poetry. Please join me in welcoming Holly Karapetkova.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much, Smartish Pace folks, for organizing this, and thanks to the Ivy. I'm going to start my timer because I'm not reading the usual, and I just want to make sure I stick to my limit. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. It's so beautiful out here. Oh my gosh, what a pleasure to be here with you. And for my Mother's Day gift, I made my children come with me all the way from Arlington County. They had to sit in the car with me for an hour and a half.
They pay their dues.
And they're paying their dues. And I told them I was going to read some poems about them. So I am.
Right.
To sweeten the deal, yeah. So I'm going to read a couple poems from my first book, Words We Might One Day Say, which was published by Washington Writers Publishing House many years ago now. But I also brought some bookmarks because Washington Writers Publishing House is currently open for submission. So if you have a poetry book, this year we're reading poetry, fiction, and poetry in translation. So I highly encourage you to submit. It's only writers from the DMV, so the competition is a little less fierce than if you're applying for a national book prize. So if you write, please I've got some bookmarks. Please submit to us.
Anonymous read.
And it's an anonymous read. Yes, we do anonymous judging. And this first poem is called The Woman Who Wanted a Child. And I wrote this for my daughter long before I knew she would even exist. For a short time, I walked the earth as a woman, breathed in the scent of gardenias and gasoline, made love to a man. We lived in a small house with a narrow staircase leading upwards into nothing. The second floor was never built. I fed him fresh garlic and parsley from our garden, the smell rising to the top of the staircase where we made love, knees and rib cages bumping against the ceiling. But my throat grew dry, my feet stuck in the dust. At night, while he slept, I walked down to the marsh where the birds gathered to dive for fish, the water wetting my waterless lips, the gentle rocking soothing the aches in my feet and my arms. Please, I said to the white tern, bringing her 6 little hatchlings bits of fish guts. You, a mother who has so many children, help me, a mother who has none. The next morning, I woke up vomiting feathers. In a few months, my belly was round and full as a blowfish, and I felt the flutter against my ribcage. I walked down to the banks of the marsh, spread my legs, and out she came, a pure royal tern, her white feathers beaded with blood. She was hungry, and I had nothing to give her. She would not take my milk. I waited out to find the mother bird on the other side of the marsh. I cannot help you, she said. I have my own children to feed. So I turned into a fish. My daughter dove, grasped me in her beak, and swallowed me whole. Now I live within her light body. We spend our days upon the high winds, bumping only against the sky. Now I feed her. And this is one for my son. It's called Before Language. And many of the poems in this first book were written in his very early days. We walked the streets, pulling leaves from the trees, petals from the flowers. They wouldn't last, but now the net of the day catches them, pins them in the albums with the photos we will never show to anyone. The clouds pass over us like words we might one day say to one another. We have no use for them. When it rains, we pull the letters off the shelf, wear them on our heads. An O around the ankle, D tucked behind an ear, G pinching the bridge of a nose. They hang there as though their only purpose were adornment. And I'm going to read a few poems now from my new book. It's just out from Gunpowder Press. And the book speaks back to power in a number of ways. White supremacy, patriarchy, religious intolerance. And this first poem in the book is called Genesis. And I was raised in a very religious household. And if you've ever spent much time with the Old Testament, it's deeply troubling, especially if you're a woman. Like any mother, I lived for my children. Bone of my bones, gave them my body as house, gave them my house as home. I was fruitful, I multiplied. Nothing was ever my own, and I called this sacrifice, devotion. What I called them became their names. Some grew, and some did not. Some were angry, and some were not. Some murdered, some tended the flocks, some built boats to escape the flood, some built towers into the sky, some became pillars of salt. I fed them by the sweat of my brow. Some needed more than I could give them, though I saved only thorns and thistles for myself. God was a voice in the sky with no tree to burn. God was a shower of sulfur, a snake winding through the dirt. If I had a moment to spare, I might have been to hear what he was saying. And since I got my kids here, I'm going to read a poem called Bad Parenting. It is entirely nonfiction. And you can see how old they are now. So this poem was written a long time ago. This book was many years in the making. I have a very slow writing process. Out back, smoking a cigarette below the window where no one can find me. The children are calling, "Mommy, where are you?" But when are they not asking for me? In the cold, my breath rises like smoke, even when I don't take a drag. The children are beginning to worry. The 7-year-old yells louder. The 2-year-old starts to cry. It's only a matter of minutes before they think to look for me here, but I need every minute I can get to figure out what happened to my life, sort through the details of this accident, the fur still lodged in white bumper paint, and the sound of muscle meeting metal, then dashing off into the night. And I've got one more for my son. Find it. This is called Zombies, also nonfiction, but he's a very different person now. My son is afraid of zombies. He runs into my room at night. They're going to eat my brains. They'll come in through the window while we're sleeping and eat our brains. Don't worry, I tell him, zombies don't exist. But what if they do? They don't. But maybe they do. They don't. But maybe they do. We walk through the house together, checking each door and window. Everything's latched tight. See, I tell him, no way zombies could get in. He is not convinced. I dig out the water we brought back from the sacred spring, where pilgrims wait in line to be healed. I sprinkle it on his head, make crosses on his wrists. He's satisfied and falls asleep. I stay awake, hear insects scraping their wings against the windows, leaves shifting beneath the empty sky. I spread the sacred water by each window, each doorstep, watching. What is there in the darkness is always looking in, dead-eyed and hankering for flesh. I watch it walk, arms raised, almost human. I've got one here for Elon. I didn't actually write it for him, but the shoe fits. The poems in this book were written like long before, many of them even before the first Trump election. And I was really hopeful when I found out this book was going to be published. It was accepted last year, and I was like, great, the election's going to go well for us, and this book is just going to be a nice little relic of our, troublesome past, and no such luck. My book is way too relevant. This one is called Breakfast of Champions. I am awakened each morning by a million pixels, the light of my own face, selfie smiling on my smartphone. I breathe in the air of 14.5 planets, breathe out 20 metric tons of carbon before I even brush my teeth. My gold medal is bigger than yours, and it's got nothing to do with luck. It's all pluck and hard work and tax breaks targeted to stimulate the economy. This stamina I acquired by pushing my checkbook from one bank to the next in search of lower interest rates. They fall like stars into my hat, and thanks to my elite education, I've learned to stuff them in my pockets, thousands of points of light, to touch them until they respond with the image I want to see. They shine every morning, only for me. And I'm going to read a couple of poems. There's a thread running through this book of poems about whiteness and white supremacy. I was raised in a fairly racist environment. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was raised in a very white neighborhood. But I went to school. I was part of the busing program. I went to school with, my school's about half black. And I found out recently that Natasha Trethewey was also part of this busing program in Atlanta, which I think is kind of cool. But so I was aware from a very early age of some of the narrative inconsistencies that I was learning at home. So some of the poems in this book are about my experiences with being raised basically to be a white supremacist, and then sort of educating myself out of that. And this poem is called Whiteness, and it has the H and the E taken out, so it also says witness. No one had to say the word white, what it meant, clear as the air in my lungs. Breathe, clear as nothing is clear. Look. No one had to sit me down in the kitchen, say, your eyes, your hair, my body, light, a window you could see right through. And this poem is called Dear White Girl. Dear Emerita, apology. Dear sugar and spice, cherry and cherry pop. Dear pillar of salt, pillar of the plantation, love and charity to all. Dear Barbie doll in a permanent ball gown, Barbie dream house, and who'd she have to marry to end up there? Dear laurel tree and hollow reeds, dear sorrow become stone, caged in the forest, turned into a bird. Dear picked flowers, wild and domesticated. Dear Wyoming and Louisiana and 81 cents to the dollar. Dear Scylla and Charybdis, good witches of the north and south, governor's wife, overseer's wife, CEO's wife, slumlord's wife. I didn't mean what I said. Please don't let me end up with that old maid card in my hand. And I'm going to read one more. This one's called Rapunzel. I'm kind of obsessed with myths and fairy tales, and so I've always got fairy tale figures and rewritings of fairy tales going on. And, To the tall tower I went willingly. No door meant no key. Nothing to open but a window high above the trees. The birds landed on the sill, singing. I held them in my hands and twisted until their heads came free, a mess of feathers at my feet. They kept coming, the birds, the men with their faces soft as feathers. They climbed up through my window and told me I was fair as sunlight. What was such a creature doing all alone in these woods? I let them twitter on and on. The witch, a story I told to lull them to sleep. The knots of my hair coiled about the sheets, but they never saw it coming. The men were always blinded. My hair was short as a thicket of thorns. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, for that beautiful reading, and thank you to her family for being here and being the inspiration for some of these poems. I'm sure that was very comfortable for both of you. We've all been there.
They're denying their identity